Are you ready for the divine feminine revolution? Let's get vulnerable and go deep.
Hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Monday, and I'm here with one of my favorite people, Alea Quiles. And I'm going to just let her do a broad intro, but I just want to help her out a little bit. She's a Reiki Master Teacher, certified breath coach, also my first coach ever. So we had such an amazing connection experience. We can process that a little bit later on, but I just loved finding out that you were a manifester. I was like, of course you were a manifester. You totally catalyzed me. And I just felt like you're such an awesome soul sister. So I'll start the brag intro a little bit for you because you've just been such an awesome, special person to me. But I'll let you kind of fill in. You're the expert on you. So just tell us whatever you want to share about you and your business.
Thank you so much for that, Megan. Oh my gosh. I love you so much. You're just the sweetest. Yes. So, and I think actually you were one of my first coaching clients too. So I love that. I love that we've been able to stay connected through life and through all the changes. But
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess I brag that, I am a Reiki Master Teacher and a certified breath coach, certified spiritual life coach, and also a multi-published author.
Woo!
Yes. I love that part, I love all of the healing modalities and everything. But books definitely have a sweet spot in my soul. Just there's so much that you can put into a book and everybody's going to read it and get something different from it, And it's also such a way to connect with people at a lower price range. Being in the coaching industry, everything is like what, $10,000, $15,000 to work with someone. And the books bring so much magic to people's lives at such an incredibly affordable price.
Yeah, it really is leaving a legacy. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about this podcast as well. I think about the thought leaders I discovered on YouTube, that changed my life and then, coaches online and all that sort of stuff. But you're kind of talking in the green room about the book piece. And I do want to pick your brain because I'm actually in the middle of writing a novel and I really thought it would be kind of a self-help book. But a little kind of not quite a memoir, like a fictional memoir, like a parallel lives kind of vibe. And I just definitely talking about transformation and a little bit of inside dish on the coaching industry. So I'm really excited to write it, but I'm also maybe let me just throw this out to you because you really birthed these projects and brought them to light. And I guess I do feel well, let me back up for a minute. When I first met my Reiki mentor 15 years ago, one of her first readings of me was that I was going to be a published author, and that was my life purpose was writing.
Yeah.
And I do feel like I have been really focused on coaching and developing my programs and all this stuff, and I think that's definitely a super important piece. But I think the writing piece, I think it's tied to past lives. I think there's so much in there, and this well, I just feel it's really wanting to come through, but I feel like the practical side of me is sort of how do I get this published? How will this bring me money? And I know so many people replace their marketing with just like you said, a book. I think especially because it's coming out more as fiction rather than say a self-help book. Just kind of curious, tell me a little bit about what was it like birthing your books? How did you get over those fears of putting your voice out there, of going through the whole production process? Tell us all the things.
Oh my goodness. It was a process. It literally was like birthing a book. It literally was burst.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, I grew up wanting to be a writer. I always wanted to be a writer. I was writing, sci-fi, and I was writing romance, and I was writing all these different things in poetry. And so for me, having it published is like one of my greatest goals achieved. But it did not come without hardship. It took me about 2 years to publish my first book, just because of all the things that come up during the process. So when you're writing your book, the most important thing is, now you have to understand, if you're writing your book just for fun, to accomplish a goal, to, just get your message out there, are you writing for passion or are you writing for money? Because there are two totally different routes to go, and neither one is better than the other. And, I have my passion projects and I have my projects that's, are gearing towards replacing my full-time income. But you have to know which way you are going, because then there's differences between those two. So if it's your passion project, definitely when you get seated down, have a general outline of where you would like to go. Like, what is the whole premise of your work? What is the mission of this work, to send into the world, right? And then you sit down and you write, and you can have like your spiritual practices, to help you get into that creative mode. And, you can have your candles lit and your incense and, whatever it may be, and get into the mode and just allow your creativity, your spiritual muse, your creative muse, just flow through you. And then once you've, written, you can write like 500 words a day and you can be done with your book, within a couple of months, and depending with editing. But this is a huge thing. Do not go back and read what you wrote after you've written it. Wait till you are done. And then you're moving into the editing process, because I can guarantee you the moment you'll go back to read what you have written, all of those things come through, like, the imposter syndrome, or, the where did that come from? Or, let me just edit this a little bit and then edit this a little bit. And then you miss the message of what you were trying to convey, and it changes into something completely different. So just waiting till that editing process to edit it. Because then once you get to that editing process and you start to read with different eyes, because now you're not writing, now you're editing, you will see all of the things that have come from your mind and your heart and just your entire being. And you'll be like, whoa, I cannot explain enough how cathartic the writing process is, because things will flow out of you that you didn't even know was in there.
I definitely had that experience. I'm like kind of guilty of being an overachiever here. Well, I did this like write your book in a weekend seminar twice. And it was this guy, Tom Bird, he's in Sedona, and he would like came locally and would do these like workshops. And the first one, he did this like hypnosis. He had like a hypnosis kind of music, kind of affirmation vibe happening. It was like some, subliminal. And then we did like all this breath work and all this stuff. And I actually, the very first time I ended up with like a tarot deck. And then the second time I ended up writing like a more traditional kind of self-helpy book. And actually, I probably need to go dig those out because I never really did anything with either one. And that was one thing I wanted to kind of put to you as you have a deck as well. So I'm kind of curious
Yes.
about that piece. And I just really relate because particularly with the breath work and stuff, like I had no idea, like, particularly this was like maybe 10 years ago. And so it was still like very much more like heady and intellectual than I am now. But like, I really like it was this thing like came through me, and it was such a powerful experience, and so vulnerable, like, oh my God, to put yourself out there like that. So and what a gift to share with the world, because I think one of my things I struggle with the coaching industry is that accessibility piece. I mean, I have people who can't even access, my therapy because of the prices, much less coaching. And so the way I try to look at it is like, the people that are paying the premium prices are sort of like almost like the patron to for you to like share your knowledge with the world. That's kind of how I look at it and rationalize it. But I do think the book is like such a beautiful like calling card, and it is so accessible. And it is funny to see even like with this podcast, like who it reaches. Like it's really popular with the international crowd. And, like with podcasts, it's more anonymous. I guess same thing with books. You don't necessarily know who's on the end unless they leave you a review. Um,
Mhm.
but just it's so cool to see. So kind of curious about what's it like when it actually is like in physical form and people can buy it?
Oh my gosh, Megan, like I will
It's the
help
best
you.
feeling ever.
It is literally the best feeling because it's like manifestation on steroids because it literally came from your head into the computer wizards, and then poof, it's like in your hand, like all the things that you've written, all the things that like your ideas are literally in your hand. It is, I can't explain it.
And I love your artwork. Like you've been on my to buy list, so I would definitely am gonna have to order after we get off here because your cover artwork is so like amazing. Like your cards look so good. Like I think you've got that real like artistic eye, and like I feel like the spiritual messages not only come through the words but also like the artwork and just like the whole it's container, I guess.
Yes, the whole package, I think definitely I definitely think that you have that as well. You are so creative in all of your containers and all of the things that you provide, just has this mystic, vibe to it and this feminine and just it's sexy and fun and flirty and just all of that stuff, and people need that. People need that in a book form or in cards and yeah, it's incredible.
My favorite thing to read is just like feel good fiction, like that kind of like book that you want to read at the beach, like in a weekend or in a week. Like, so that's what was kind of my idea was like to merge the two and to like
Yeah.
sort of like a fun book you can read over the beach, but then also like
Mhm.
all the self-help stuff is in there, but it's like through characters that you really like love and look up to and everything. And you were talking about the passion projects, and I really feel like for me, that's like ebooks and courses and workshops and stuff. Like to me, those are things that like maybe I get obsessed with like short term and want to like, like create something and it like maybe like flows through. I think for me, like thinking about like a more like long term book, like a novel or like, I remember you did a post where it was like, this is like, you've got one that's like a long one, like 100 plus pages. And like, I feel like that's a whole different animal than like a 20-page ebook with links or something. Not that one's better or the other, but they just
Right.
like definitely have like a different flavor to them.
Yes. Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
So tell us a little bit about your creation because I mean, that's one thing about I love the manifestors because y'all are just like here to do your own thing and like make it happen and inspire and catalyze other people. And I just love, I'm like, oh my gosh, you got a new project. Oh my God, what is it next? So tell us like brag a little bit on your books and your things that are for sale on Amazon.
Yes. So I have the two books on that are I was going to say reading books, but I also have planners and I have what do they call it? It's a art journal. Is awesome. It is super cool. And that one actually does pretty well on there because it's a color your day happy art journal. And so you just color these mandalas in there. And at the end of the week, you get to write, how you're feeling that week, checking in with yourself, it's like a self-help book, but you're just coloring, that's it. But I have a few of those. I have a dream journal and a shadow work journal as well. And then I have my two books. I have my book that is about 100 some odd pages. It's a full length book, almost 30,000 words. And then I
Woo!
have, yeah, yes, that's the one that took 2 years. it was a labor of love.
So did you
And
do that one like in spurts or like I went away for a weekend and did the outline and that seemed to really work for me. I haven't been able to like nail down like an hour a day kind of vibe. Like did you work on it daily? Was it in spurts, both?
yes, so I started with the outline, just to make sure that I stayed on task and stayed on topic, within the book. And then once I had that down, I sat down for about half an hour a day. I wasn't totally consistent with that. It was like when I had, the opportunity to do that. So
Also, like mama and a homeschooling, and you have a business. So, like,
yes, yeah,
you're a busy woman.
yeah, yes. Yeah. So I would just sit down and I would speak the book. So I used dictation, which I do not recommend. I mean, if you speak like you write, then it might be okay. But you and I were talking about that earlier, and the way I speak is completely different than the way that I write. It's completely different. So if you feel that you are the same, then don't use dictation, because once it gets to the editing process, you will be like, what was I trying to say here? Because not only is like the way we speak different, and then there's like these, things that we throw in there, the fillers like and like and all these things, right? But also the computer doesn't always pick up different things. And if you have like different settings on there, it's not going to catch any bad words. It's just going to be blank. And it's like, well, what was I trying to say there? Yeah. So
I had a similar experience. I thought, oh, well, I can talk so much easier than I can write. Like, let me just do it that way. But I had a similar thing. I went to the transcription and I was like, I don't even work. What does this mean? Like, I've gotten podcast episodes. Thankfully, those came out like actually. I don't know if it was audio quality or something like that, but it's really frustrating because you think when you're on in the moment, like, oh, I'm really on to something, and then you look back and it's like some gobbledygook.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much how my book ended up being. But if you just, spend about, not like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe, if you have the time, you can get at least 300 to 500 words a day, and just continue on that train of creativity, that flow of inspiration. Just allow it, to come. It's a lot easier that way. And even if you sit down and you're like, I don't even know what to write. Like, why did I even put this in the outline? Like, why? Even if you sit down and you still feel like that and you just allow yourself to write, you can even say, I don't even know what I'm talking here. Like, I don't even know why I put this in the book and blah, 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 blah. And then you'll just start typing and you'll start writing and it'll just start forming itself and on the page. So, yeah.
Well, we are here on Divine Feminine Revolution podcast, and I do think like I was doing some quantum trance sessions like right around New Year's, and it was basically like don't even worry about coaching, like get this book out. And I've kind of obviously did not take my higher advice totally, because I have just been pushing forward with coaching. But I'm like, okay, I'm like, I think the universe is holding out on me a little bit. Like, it really wants me to like write this book. And so I'm like, okay, I think I'm finally at the point where I'm like, okay, I just need to, um, I feel like July, like some stuff is in my fifth house, which is like birthing babies, which I don't think there's like necessarily a physical baby coming, but I think there could be a book baby coming. And so I'm like, okay, universe is like, it's like putting my hand in the fire. Like, you've been waiting too long to write this book. Just like go ahead and do it. And so I feel like sometimes that sort of like manic, like that's how I've done like websites or sometimes like course creation and stuff. There's just like really like giving myself, you know, a few days or a week or like go on a retreat or something like that and just like let it pour out of me. So I think it's time, and I've outlined it. This one's like fiction. So if any of y'all are out there interested in that, like, and I think you could even use this outline for nonfiction, but the Save the Cat, which is like kind of a screenplay sort of guideline, like really helped me like kind of with the masculine to give it like an overall structure. But then I really love that like vibe of like just being receptive and like letting it flow through. And something that you said to me in coaching like has really stuck with me, and I've used it myself. Is just what you said about like the masculine and the feminine energy and the analogy between the like the sperm and the eggs, and like the sperm are on the mission and the eggs just kind of like sit there and wait, like receptive. And so I
Mhm.
feel like, in the process of like, especially if you're tapping into, specific information that wants to come through and you're like more like channeling in that way. Um, there's so much like divine feminine energy of just like being the receptacle that like, it is like embodies that as it flows through.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. And it is such a blend of that, the the masculine and the feminine, because the masculine is definitely having that outline, a place for it to like, go, and a place like it's holding that space for the feminine to come in and the creativity of all of those beautiful words, to come in. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's super helpful, because it is so easy to get in your head, like around is this good enough and worthiness. And I think if we can get past the whole worthiness thing, then it's like the who am I to do this thing. And I think that those shut down creativity. I was actually doing a teen group earlier today, and they had a mixed media artist come in for like a mindfulness practice. And it was just really interesting to see the teens work. Like a lot of them got into it. Like some were just like, I'm not doing it, or like just did something really quick and then sat there and scrolled on their phones afterwards. But I just feel like creativity is such a powerful vehicle for like transformation. And I feel like creativity has saved my life. Like, I mean, it has been my coping strategy to deal with like the tough times and everything. And so I just like you mentioned art journaling, like I'm a love art journaling. I always wanted to be an artist, but didn't have the practice or like the art skills per se, but like to have something like a coloring book or collage or like vision boarding or whatever. It's been such a powerful practice because like you really don't need the talent. You just need like some stencils or some stamps or stickers or whatever. But I feel like that's so much what our culture needs right now. I think so few people are creative anymore. We're all consuming and we're not being creators. And like to be a creator, like we create our lives, like we are the ultimate creator, of what we experience. And so like if you feel like people would be like, I'm not creative. And I'm like, you're like
Yes, you
totally cutting
are.
yourself out from your power. Yeah. Like that's like the most important thing you can be. You're a creator. Like, of course you're creative. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
so how
Yeah.
did you kind of get over that with your process? Like just going ahead and making it a priority, like balancing that masculine, feminine.
Oh my gosh. So I was actually part of a mastermind. And so
Nice.
kind of like being part of that mastermind and having the sisterhood there kind of like kicked me in the butt to do it, because every week I would be coming with the same thing, like I'm still writing my book, and everybody was so, so supportive, and just like, you got this, and there were so many times that they had to lift me up because I was like, I can't. I can't anymore. I can't do this. Like, this is like, what if it's total garbage? Like, what if I say, something that triggers somebody? Like, what if it's just not received? Like, what if somebody reviews it and they hate it? Like, what, and it would just like completely derail any kind of, creative flow or anything, And so being part of that, accountability and being part of that sisterhood really, did help me to finally finish my book, because then I was able to go back and be like, I'm done. Um, but it did take a while. I finished it outside of the mastermind, just because I had the oracle cards that I was working on and the book, because I wanted to release them together, because they go together, like once you read and get activated by what's inside, activating your inner alchemist, and then having the alchemist affirmation set just really, brings it home, the things that you have just gained from that book, and allowing it to stew and be a part of your being and allowing it to sit there and help you manifest. So, but yeah, I had help and support and accountability.
I think that is kind of the magic ingredient. That's why we like invest in masterminds and containers and that sort of thing. Kind of curious about the oracle cards. I know like I bought a class, which I think I've like yet to actually consume around like creating an oracle deck on Canva.
Mhm.
Curious, like, did you go through like another provider? Like, what was that like design process like? What did you use?
Yes. So I did it was really hard to find a card
Ah,
maker that was affordable because originally I was going to go the overseas route because I wanted to be able to sell on Amazon and be able to have the cards and the book sell at the same time through Amazon, right? I mean, that's like the most practical idea, right? But doing the whole overseas thing was a complete nightmare. And I could not, like, I just, it was just not feasible, especially through everything that the world is going through right now and like and what I was going through, being stay at home and teaching my kid and all of this stuff. It was a long process. So a lot of that time was taken up trying to figure out how to do the overseas thing
yeah.
without a team. I don't have a team. It's just me, myself, and I. So, trying to figure that out. I'm talking to the people who would ship it and making sure because there's all these things along the way from getting it from port to port and then into Amazon's warehouse and all of those things. Like I've learned so much stuff about that I hope I never have to use.
Yeah.
It was too much. So I decided to go the other route and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to charge whatever I want because I wanted, an affordable price. I like having affordable options for my audience and for my clients. But with that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to I'm going to charge a higher price. People know me. People are going to read my book. They're going to see the cards. It's going to be a package deal. They already know what's inside the book. So the higher price, should be fine. I am allowed to charge a higher price. Right. And so when I allowed myself to feel that, I then searched other distributors and I went with Make playing cards. And it was
Mhm.
really simple. It was really, really simple. I did the backgrounds all myself on Procreate, so that was fun. And I just had the size in Canva, dropped it in there, and I wrote the the affirmations, and then I sent all of those pictures over to Make playing cards, and then they printed it for me.
That's
Um,
exciting.
yeah.
And, like, to have this, like, tangible, like, oh my gosh, to have an oracle deck, that's definitely on the bucket list. Cool.
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, there is no way to explain the feeling of actually like holding it in your hand. I mean, so many times we, manifest so many different things, right? We manifest money, we manifest like different, checks coming in the mail. We manifest a dinner at a place that we've been wanting to eat at. We manifest a parking spot or a house or anything like that, right? Which is really cool and awesome. And we're grateful, right? But this is a different kind of manifestation. Like this is something that you've taken from, and it's not like a course, because that's cool too when you've built a course, or you've, built a membership or something like that. This is something physical in your hands that you can hold, you can touch, you can feel, it's a whole different thing.
So, well, first of all, I'm just gonna say I'm feeling glow because it's all about the course I'm launching right now is all about manifestation and pleasure. And that was gonna kind of be my question to you, which is, did it feel like self-indulgent to take the time out to do it? Like, I mean, I can tell that it gave you like so much like pleasure and inspiration and stuff. like, was that an edge that you had to go through to just like carve out the time in your busy life to make it happen?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, because like, you can suffer like imposter syndrome, like I said, and if if you allow that to crop up or the other fears that come along with it, like, who's going to read this? What are they going to say? All those things, you know, um, that's why a lot of writers don't end up being published authors because of those things, those things that come up.
Delay of gratification, because like you said, it took you 2 years to write your book, like versus you could like launch something, a course or something and have more like an
Mhm,
immediate payoff. And
mhm.
I like I think that sometimes is an obstacle, especially like I know when I first had that reading, like back in that day, it was like pre-social media, like aging myself here, but like the internet and social media were just catching on. And so like you had to have a literary agent and you had to write a book proposal and all this stuff. And so I did a ton of research at that time trying to figure out like how to get published. And I think it's just like such a cool time now that you
Oh,
don't have
yeah.
to go through all of that. Like you can self-publish, and if you do good with
Mhm,
self-publishing and you have an audience, like it will get picked up,
mhm.
by mainstream. So but I guess like for me, I still am like, oh well, like what if I spend, the next 2 years writing this book and then like nothing comes of it? Like what if it, doesn't get put I mean, I think I would self-publish it. So like, yeah. But I think there's that like what if moment. And I think, I'm like, you get choked up here. For me as a mom or something like that, you can see I'm releasing here. Oh my God, this doesn't happen on the podcast. Yeah. I'm gonna let you talk. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yes. So, as Megan was saying, it really is. It's you can end up putting that on the back burner, because of all those things that come up. But if you have a passion for writing or you want to tell your story, there are so many different ways, to make it become a reality. If you have a budget, you can hire a ghostwriter. If you have a budget, you can hire someone to make your cover. You can hire someone to write your intro. You can hire somebody to write your outline. If you don't have a budget, you can obviously do all that stuff yourself. I think what um, I was just saying, um, that if you have a budget, you can get some of those things done. You can get a ghostwriter. You could get somebody to write your outline. You can get someone to write your intro, somebody to make your cover, your back cover. I mean, literally, you can hire for all of those things, right? Um, but if you want to do it yourself, and it is a passion project and you do want it out in the world and you have something in you that you want to make this happen, like I did. I think it's just the conviction. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you. It doesn't matter how long it takes you as long as you carve out just a little bit of time every day. And for a long time, I had it on my vision board. I had it up on my vision board. I had it written on my wall. I had it on my mirror inside my bathroom. I like had it everywhere. Like I'm doing this because what really helped me is since I always wanted to write. I always wanted to write. I was 11 years old, and I remember like just writing out in the grass, and being like, oh my gosh, like this would be so cool, if I had a book just out there, for people to read. And I was thinking about her. I was thinking about her every time that I wrote something. Also, my audience as well, but I was thinking about her in the actions that I was taking. Like, she would be so proud of me right now. She would be so incredibly proud that I actually made this happen. And that's what helped get through those times where I was like, oh my gosh, like we're gonna get this done, you know? But yeah, it was really thinking about her.
I love that you did that for your little girl. And I'm just kind of like laughing at myself because one of the things I love about like real and raw, that's like, I feel like authenticity and vulnerability is such a big part of my brand. And I've had this happen like teaching university classes, like working with clients and stuff, but we'll probably edit around it. But I totally just got choked up. And I know that that was like a release, and you're a Reiki Master Teacher. So am I. Um, I've worked with clients where they get that coughing fit, and it like literally talk about like some throat chakra stuff. I'm like sitting here like I can't make time to do my book, and then I'm like, you know, and I feel like, particularly if you believe in like past lives, like a lot of us witchy women had, lives where we were persecuted for magic, and I think that that can create like a lot of like throat chakra issues, and I know that's kind of the case for me. And so, just really, I think, releases, whether it's releasing a book or, just releasing a block, like it's kind of all the same thing, just like letting it flow through and like having the courage to like kind of be seen with that. So thank you for taking over for that little like awkward moment there when I was like choking up.
No worries. And if you choose to edit out, that's fine too.
We'll see. We'll see if it can be edited out, but just to use it as a little learning lesson kind of thing, and I think that, that was like the piece of like doing the podcast for me. I feel like kind of almost like it was a more comfortable format because I had worked one-on-one with people. I love talking with people. All the subjects we talk about are like so fun. I'm very, just like selfishly motivated to like hear about these things, and hopefully the audience loves it too. But yeah, the book, it does feel like it's like another level of this thing. And I feel really inspired by what you shared about your little girl and like how much she loved writing. And yeah, I feel like when it's your life purpose, it is this like sort of double-edged sword because like you're meant to do it, which is a big pull and motivation. But then at the same time, it can also just feel like so excruciatingly vulnerable because it's also your purpose. I'm big into like numerology, and I've talked about on the podcast. My life path is 2911, and my whole family, like my daughter and my son, oh my gosh, a little Freudian, but it's been my daughter. Maybe there's a son on the way. We'll see. I've been told that, but they're all ones as well. And so we're like one represents creativity and confidence. And I can see in them and in myself, we are such creative people and we are confident in a certain way. But then it's like the double-edged sword that's also like extremely like vulnerable, both of those things. And so I just love that you like made the space to show up for your little girl, especially when so much was going on in your life, just personally, like the pandemic, you know, all the things that go along with being a mom boss. It's no easy feat. So, just love that you showed up for her.
Yeah. Well, that was my inner child.
Yeah.
My inner child just showing up for her and making it happen. But what's also very cool, speaking of like that childlike energy and stuff, when I published my books and I got them in the mail and I showed my kids, they were just like, what? Like, Mom, you're on a book? Like, yeah, I wrote that book. And they're just like, what? And they were just like, and my older kid was just kind of like confused and like analyzing like how that happened. And my youngest was just like flipping through the pages like, you wrote this book, And my oldest,
I love it.
and my oldest son, like he'll tell like his teachers and stuff. He's like, oh yeah, my mom's an author, and they're like, oh yeah, that's really cool that she's an author. He's like, no wait, she's a published author.
But you wrote this sweetest little post about like your son having a headache and you doing Reiki, and it just was like it's so sweet and powerful. And I think that was kind of my inspiration for getting Reiki was, this was back when I was in grad school, 15, well, I'm like 20, I don't know. You know, probably add a few
Numbers don't matter.
in a while, but a couple of decades ago, I was in grad school and my dad was going through cancer the first time. And I just felt like so helpless and powerless. And it was just such a really tough time for me. And I did this like Reiki training and really joined like a healing center. And it just really like fused with my psychology background. And so like for me, they were like the influences were coming at the same time. And so it was like such a great marriage for me to kind of be a more holistic psychologist and now like a pleasure psychologist. I'm really owning that. And so I think it's just I love that, you know, um, you can share that with your babies and help them feel better. And they're not babies anymore, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah. I, in that post, I talked about like, all the things that are happening, right now. All of us are affected, right? And it was just all the things just weighing down on me, and just being isolated, like being a mom, all these different things. Like I was feeling like I was unworthy of holding the space of Reiki because Reiki is unconditional love, right? And me feeling like garbage. I was like, how am I going to hold the space for this? So I just kind of stopped doing it because I was like, well, I'm just, today I'm not in the best space or today I'm not in the best space. And it just kept, going down that track. I mean, and so things started to really change. We made some different changes within our family dynamic um and then my son got a new teacher. Not that the other teacher was bad. She was fantastic. It was just the amount of work for him. He's autistic. So he has an entire IEP team and everything. And I feel like the teacher before, although she was absolutely fantastic, I think it was more, she was trying to make him more uh, neurotypical. And the teacher that he got afterwards, because the other one left, was actually like assisting him being neurodivergent, and helping him. Yeah, like take plenty of breaks, like get away from the screen, go outside, like all of these beautiful self-care things, and just allowing him to do what he could and not sweat the rest. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a godsend because I'm like sitting here in tears. He's in tears. Like I'm trying to get him to do his work because I don't want him to fail. I don't want him to repeat second grade, I'm just like, oh my God. But back to the Reiki, like before all that, like I would help him with his tummy aches or when he had a cold or, all of those different things. And I just forgot, I just forgot to do that stuff because I wasn't at my best because I wasn't perfect, right? Not perfect, not the perfect human, right? And I think that that's a trend in the spiritual community. You have to be high vibes only all the time and only show up when you're in the best, energy. And you can only do things when, and it's too much. We are human. Exactly. We're human. We're allowed to be human. We're allowed to feel our very human feelings. And it doesn't make us any less worthy of our spiritual healing tools. Those healing tools are there to help us through those times. And I had to remember with the help of my son saying, you do have something to help. You have Reiki. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. I do.
You're so wise. I was talking about that with the team that I was doing the group. I'm like, sometimes you all come in knowing more than your parents do as like an authoritarian style of parenting doesn't make room for that. But I do
Oh,
feel like these kids are coming in with such gifts. And I've worked with a lot of autistic clients through the years, like mostly to some teens, but also like adults. And I just feel like, they have such a beautiful gift to give the world. And
mhm.
I don't think that they need to like adjust to the expectations of like how it's been working. Like they're here to be the change makers and to bring
Yes.
out like a more balanced approach. And I share the same thing with, I mean, I just feel like schools are so achievement oriented. Like my daughter was learning things in third grade. She'd be like, "What? How old were you when you?" I was like, "I don't know, sixth grade," and you're learning it in third grade. Like I just feel like they're pushing way too much on these kids.
Yeah.
Like they were reading at like first grade. I'm like, wait, what? Like it's like I don't I feel like that is way off, and it's all about like, the numbers and the
Mm.
testing and getting money to the schools,
Oh,
and
the
it's
funding and all of that. Yeah, I know. That's a whole nother, like, I could go on and on
I know
about.
it terrorizes the parents because we're like, "You gotta do your homework. We gotta get this thing turned in," and, it's just like, oh my god, I do really, like, so feel like divine feminine revolution, this, like, matriarchy rising. I do feel like the school systems are something that really so need to be changed. There's so much bureaucracy and red tape and like just I feel like No Child Left Behind was like every child left behind.
Yeah.
In the way that they just made it all about the testing. And I also have had many teachers as clients and have just been like, I hate life because you can't do what you want, you can't do what's good for the kids. It's all about the bureaucracy and the numbers. And anyway, I'm like on the soapbox here, but I do just like, that's like the legal system, the educational system, the government, some of these things like are
All these things.
drastically like kind of need to crash and burn and like let's start anew with like a more responsive
Yeah, and
Yes, yes.
sustainable and more nurturing
uh,
because I mean, so many things kids are learning in school and they can't use them when they graduate. So what's the point?
yeah.
Why aren't we teaching self-care? Why aren't we teaching self-regulation? Why aren't we teaching, I mean, home economics was, a jaded thing, but why aren't we teaching that in some kind of capacity? People don't know how to cook. People don't know how to clean. People don't know how to use their finances. People don't know how to apply for credit.
And I think that's on purpose. Yeah. To keep us.
Those are the things you're doing when you go out into the world. So why are you learning about these things that don't even apply?
Yeah.
Just so you could pass a test so that school can get money.
I think also to fall back to that toxic positivity, like that's kind of the season that I had been in with my business was, I'm talking about it on the podcast and on my content and stuff, but my dad was diagnosed with uh, leukemia in like October of last year. And again, it like hit me really hard, like I just referenced with the first time when I was in grad school and I got the Reiki. But like just part of survival and self-care, I was like, okay, I just like really need to focus on like my paid, showing up to like the minimum that I have to do because it was such a painful time. But then I was also like, what am I going to write about? And I had been writing these, maybe like bordering a little bit on toxic positivity, it was like authentic to me, but I feel like it was like a little like trying to be high vibe kind of thing. And then I was just like, I can't go there. Like I'm feeling not that way,
Right.
And I do think that those are the moments where you have the healing crisis. And I think they actually get you, well, like for me, it was definitely like a reset. Like I did kind of just like disappear for a few months. And then I did feel like that pull of like, um, even if it, you know, he doesn't always come with like the financial success that I would want. Like I do feel like putting my thoughts and my words and like my products and my creation out there is just like important because it like fulfills me. And I feel like I just came from like um it really like bottomed me out into I love like Brene Brown and like the vulnerability thing. And I know like every public figure has, some things that they slip up and say or they need to like work on their, diversity and inclusion or whatever. But I just think of like leading with your vulnerability and your experience. It is so like scary and powerful and raw. And like I noticed that those are the posts that do really well. The messy ones, the ones I'm afraid to like hit send or like I did one with like my double chin and I was like, oh my God. But those are the ones people like because we're so sick of seeing the fake plastic stuff, and I think it's kind of impossible to also do like those emotional vulnerable posts like 100% of the time because then you're just like kind of bleeding on people. But, those are the ones that get the response. And so I think that that is a really powerful movement to show the whole human experience. And I find it so like when you're just saying like not feeling worthy of the Reiki, I'm like, oh my God, you're so worthy and you're such an amazing healer. And that's just like a part of you. But I know those mom moments where like, losing your temper or you haven't slept in days or you just feel like shit. You're totally with you there. And I think like putting a spotlight on that because otherwise people are like stretching to try to get something that isn't even real. Like that person who like has it doesn't even have it. Fake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, the healing modalities are there. They're there not just for when we are feeling our best, but also when we're feeling our worst, and really leaning into them when it happens. And I think too, like, that's usually what happens, right? Like when we're doing really, really good, we can like kind of skip out on our self-care and our tools and stuff. And then it's when we're not feeling good that we're like, oh my gosh, like I need this right now. But the thing is that, if we get over that hurdle of, being worthy or using our gifts and continuously using them and consistently, then, those times are less and less. Not that they don't happen, but, it helps because you've already created a habit of using it, So, yeah. And I've done it with my children too. So my kids, they are totally on board with Reiki. They love Reiki. Even my little one, he sits down and he's like, Mom, do you mean Reiki? And then he does it. He sits there and he puts his little hands out and he like closes his eyes and he's like, like rubbing my feet or my leg or whatever it is. I'm like, oh my God, it's so cute. Like, yes, yes.
I know. It means like, I mean, I feel like our young ones, especially like born to the healers, like, of course, they've got the healing gifts, but I really do just feel like these young generations are like such healers. But the thing about them is they like dish out what they get. You know what I mean? Like you have to respect them for them to respect you. And so like, you can't use like force and power. Like it's not going to work. The old paradigm of power over people like does not work with these kids because they're multidimensional and gifts and like we need to like learn from them,
Yes.
and like they are the, leading us into this new divine feminine kind of revolution that's upon us.
Yeah. If I could share something real quick. So my oldest son, he is like I said, he's neurodivergent and I'm neurodivergent too, but my brain doesn't work like his. Like we're very different from each other, but obviously we love each other. And there was a point in like my self-healing journey and I was thinking like, I give advice to so many people, and I help so many different people and and I hold space for so many people, for a time there I was taking care of my mom as well. And in my family dynamics, like no one keeps me accountable like to myself or, tells me like, hey, Leah, like you're being a little too much right now or like, or something like that. And I'm like, who's my mirror? Like, who's my mirror? Who can reflect back to me what I like, how I am behaving, like what I am doing? Like, who's my mirror? And then it wasn't until after that I realized it's my oldest son. It is my oldest son. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is why we butt heads all the time because he is my mirror. He is showing me exactly who I am as a person. And sometimes that can be really hard to accept, I know for me, it's
Hard Aries.
it's such a,
I forget what the other one is, but
yeah, Aries, Sun, Scorpio, Moon, and Cancer rising. And he's like, sir, Cancer, Sun, Aries, Moon. So we're like,
my daughter's had an Aries moon. So does my dad. And and same kind of similar thing. So my husband and my daughter are, he's a 41.5, she's a 14.5. So they're the same life path but reverse. And then their Chirons, like she's got Chiron in Pisces, he's got Pisces moon, he's got Chiron in Aries, she's an Aries moon. And so they're like, yeah, that's one of those soul contracty relationships for sure, for better or for worse.
Yes.
So I feel you. And she's kind of like a mini me too. So it's, I'll be like, she's getting attitude. And I'm like, oh my God, like, you have so much attitude. And I'm like, is that how I sound? And she's like, yeah.
Oh my gosh, Megan. Yes, that's exactly it.
I'm so nice and stuff on the air. She's like, you're so nice to your clients. Like, why can't you be nice? I'm like, well, they pay me to be nice. But like, mommy's a lot of nice at the end of the day. So true.
Oh my gosh. Yes, they are the perfect mirrors, like perfect mirrors. And
Yeah.
that, like you were saying, we're learning from them. Yes, 100%. I have learned more from my children than I have learned anywhere else or in like anything. Like the capacity for love, right? The capacity for love, the capacity for compassion, the capacity for creativity, like all of the different things. It's just like, it's mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, like there's still no better feeling than like your child's skin on you. It like completes the circuit, it's just so powerful. So I'm definitely gonna have you back on. I would love to we could talk about a million things probably for hours. So I do know you have a really amazing breath work kind of workshop coming up. So I don't know if you got your final thought out, but just want to invite you to, finish your thought and also promote all your transformational experiences. And let me just say, you were such a catalyst on my journey, and you have just, I feel like, I've worked with probably too many coaches, like a lot of really amazing, incredible coaches. And I feel like you're definitely one of the people that held me the most, especially in that very first coaching experience. And I have thought about what if I just stayed with Alea, the whole time, I'm and sometimes I feel that almost as a regret just because it was just such a powerful container. And I just kind of buy into the, oh, let me learn from this millionaire coach, and I do think, that the more I've paid for coaching, not to say that I didn't learn or it wasn't worth a lesson or whatever, almost the less that I've got. So maybe it's just the nerd in me. I really like the classes and the content and the concepts and stuff like that. But when you're paying thousands of dollars for a few precious hours, I just don't think that there's always enough time for the full transformation to happen. But anyway, just to say that I just want to really say you're an incredible coach, you're an incredible healer, you hold space for the transformation, and everyone should go hire Alea and take her workshops and everything. So I'll just hand it over to you now.
Oh, thank you so much. So, we're talking about healing modalities, and we're talking about Reiki and breath work. And I even mentioned breath work, and I have outlined a couple of breath work exercises inside of my book, Activating Your Inner Alchemist. And it's, reading it is a lot different than actually practicing it, and I realized that I need to be out there and teaching this because it is such an incredible healing modality. It has helped me more than I can say. And it, along with the Reiki, my children also use breath work. And I've noticed too in school, they've started implementing box breathing, which is absolutely amazing. I love, I have a vision of going in the future and teaching some of these modalities at school, because that would be just so incredible to be able to provide this to, to children or even, young adults, to be able to regulate their nervous system, because that's exactly what breathing does. And yeah, breathing, for me, this is my conviction. Breathing is the root of all healing, because no matter what you're doing, if you're doing Reiki, if you're doing meditation, if you're journaling, if you're doing art, your breath changes. Your breath changes when you're doing those exercises, when you're doing those modalities. And that's what I am teaching inside of my workshop that I have running on July 8th. It's called the Breath Bar Workshop. And yeah, so the reason why it's called the Breath Bar is because there are different categories of breathing. Because when we go online and we're like looking for a breath, exercise and then we follow it on YouTube and like, okay, this is for relaxing and okay, we're going to be doing this exercise, this breath exercise. You kind of just don't understand like why you're doing it. Like, you want to do it to help relieve anxiety or stress, but it's like, how often do I use it? When do I use it? So there's 3 different categories of breathing. And the first one is the coffee category. So the coffee category, you can imagine all the breathing exercises that really like ramp you up and get you fired up. So obviously you want to be using those in the morning before exercise, or, you can even do it before you go into writing, because then you're super activated. Like you are cognitive, you are, in your clairvoyance, your clear, all of these things. So then we have the water category. Sorry, my phone. We have the water category where you can drink water any time of the day, right? Like it won't affect you. It'll just keep you hydrated, right? So the water category is all about balance. It's really just balancing you out. So in the afternoon is probably one of the better times to use it, but you can use it any time of day. It's going to balance you out. If you're feeling too hyper, if you're feeling too sleepy, it's going to balance you out. And then we have the tea category, which, a nighttime tea, it's all about that relaxation and really helping you to get into that relaxed mode and to fall asleep and just to, get into that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. So all of that stuff I am teaching inside of the breath bar, because I'm serving up all of these categories. We're going to be doing breath exercises, and it's for a month, and we meet 4 times, and you have homework between those things, and we get to talk about it and share our experiences and all the fun stuff. I'm really excited about it.
Well, I was told that's so awesome. And I agree. Like, we need breath to live. And yet we take it so for granted, and like the ability to heal and transform. So love that. Well, thank you so much, Leah. I'd love to have you back. And just
I
so
would
good
love to come back.
yeah, because I'm sure we could do like an episode on each one of these topics. We just did like a little sprinkling for everybody today. But go check out our workshops, and thank you all so much in the audience for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Want to keep the conversation flowing? Find us on Facebook at the Divine Feminine Revolution Facebook group, where revolutionary women gather to listen to their hearts, monetize their gifts, and change the world.